Welcome back. This is the Rise News Channel. You're watching The Morning Show with me, Biola Labi. Back to our guest in the studio, Mr. Emefiele. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
One of the things you were talking about when we went on break was also about existential shocks in the system. One of the things we've been hearing is around commodity prices again. So there is a sense that oil prices aren't going to stabilize at sort of the 50 rate that they are, that there is still a possibility that oil prices will fall. How will we be insulated against having such a crisis like we had last time if oil prices do fall?
Well, I think basically the point is that Nigeria has no, we don't have a choice but to think about how to diversify the economy away from heavily relying on oil.
Yes.
And it starts this way. I mean, when we grew up reading the economics of Nigeria, there was a time when Nigeria survived without oil. Nigeria survived. Then we grew up to hear about granite pyramids in another part of the country. We grew up to hear about cocoa being exported out of the country. We grew up hearing that the South Midwest and the southeastern part of the country will produce palm oil and export. Indeed, at that time, Nigeria was the largest producer of palm oil with almost close to about 40% market share. But unfortunately, we found oil and we let down our guards.
Yes.
What other countries who have this, I would say, who were blessed with oil have done? Take, for instance, Norway. Norway has one of the largest sovereign wealth investment funds in the world, as high as almost close to about 900 billion. I know, and that is a country of a population of
2 million people. I think.
Less than five. Let's say 5 million people.
Yes.
But Norway also produces fish, right? So aside from their crude, which they save those investments and ensure that those investments, I mean, those revenues from crude are invested in infrastructure and all that, they also survive on agric, which is fish in this case.
Yes.
So what I thought Nigeria should have done should have been, don't let down your guards. Yes, you're very good, you're blessed with a good climate, you're blessed with good soil, and if you can grow and export cocoa, if you can grow and export palm oil, if you can grow your food, continue to grow it, feed your people, and export it, and then earn revenues from it. Sure. At the same time, you also have revenues from crude, which you can use to grow your infrastructure, invest in your infrastructure, and develop your economy. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. Well, that is history now. But I'm saying, because we've had the opportunity of surviving as a country, right, on revenues from non-oil sectors,
Yes.
we do not have a choice but to diversify our revenue base from heavily relying on oil to these agricultural sectors.
Fair enough.
Right.
One of the things we've noticed, I mean, this is a long plan. I mean, this is a long-term plan. So in a way, it's great that, I mean, I know one of the things that the central bank has done is really focus on developing the agricultural sector. But at the same time, people have come and they've complained about high interest rates. The people can't invest the way they want to invest. They can't get access to finance because of the interest rates. So one of the things I know you've been advocating is PAVE, which you just mentioned, which is produce, add value, and export. For us to really catalyze and almost sort of reinvest in the agricultural sector and rediscover this sort of export value, where are we going to get the investments from, number one, and how are we going to get lower interest rates?
Well, you see, the point first is that, like I said, the Central Bank of Nigeria has, over the last few decades, been involved in development finance activities.
Yes.
What that meant is that, and the Act gives the Central Bank the powers to do what it is doing. So what Central Bank has done is to say, look, with some liquidity that it has at its disposal, let's make this available to fund, say, agriculture through our commercial agricultural credit scheme. Let's make some of these funds available to micro, small, and medium enterprises. These funds are lent out at single-digit interest rates. So what we're saying is that, well, in the absence of us being able to, I would say, globally, I mean, within Nigeria overall, be able to achieve a low interest rate, because agriculture or micro, small businesses cannot grow at double digit. We have to accept that fact. What we've done, what the central bank has done, is to say, look, we have some funds set aside. And I can tell you that over the last 10 years, central bank has invested over 2 trillion naira, right, funding agriculture, funding micro, small, and medium enterprises, funding manufacturing enterprises that are intent on going into the agricultural space. That has been done over the last couple of years, and we would continue to do so because we think that is what can be done to support our efforts towards diversifying the economy, growing food for our people, and ensuring that we are self-sufficient in our food production.
So let me ask you, what is it that we need to do to almost sort of speed this process up, get more people into the sector? Because right now, there aren't enough people to really produce enough for Nigeria to consume and to export. And there doesn't seem to be enough encouragement or engagement with people actually going into production, manufacturing, or the incentive there. What is it that we need to do as Nigerians to get more people involved in the actual production and us being sustainable before we even think of exporting?
Well, I don't agree that there aren't enough people. I mean, a country with a population of over 180 million people, and where you have many of them being in farming, I think what has happened is that they haven't been encouraged in the past. People were producing, for instance, palm oil,
yes,
right? People, as a result of the fact that we found oil, people began to migrate from the rural areas to the urban area, urban centers and the rest. We need to do something to keep our people in the rural areas, develop the rural areas, provide access roads, give them what they need to have to enjoy the comfort of life, even wherever they choose to stay, whether in the rural or the urban centers. Making this available, you also try to make sure that one way or the other, you make funding available to them, right? At, I repeat, single-digit interest rates.
Yes.
Government, and I will come back to making funds available at single-digit interest rates and then making funds available to the mass of people. But I think government themselves also have a right, have a responsibility to ensure that when these people produce food, those food have to be sold. So one way or the other, countries get involved in what they call trade wars. There are some who find Nigeria as a very big market, and what they want to do is come dump it on you, and then at low prices that will unfortunately send your farmers out of business. So government itself has its own role to play to say, what can we do to give some form of protection? Yeah, people don't like to hear protectionism, a story about protectionism, but you don't have a choice, one way or the other, but to protect your farmers. I mean, in different parts of the world, even in the United States,
sure,
people subsidize wheat. So they give farmers money to say, produce the wheat, they will take the wheat off you, and then either will give them out or sell them at cheap prices. Sure. So those are some of the ways you could protect your farmers. What is important is that when those farmers produce, you must have or put in place a mechanism their hand, buy it from them so they can go back to farming. That mechanism we didn't put in place, and that's why we find this situation where they would produce because those food couldn't be purchased. Those food get rot away.
Sure. And
for that reason, the incentive, the encouragement to go back to farming is not there. But what we are doing, what the government of President Buhari has done in the last 2 years is that, listen, we need to encourage our farmers again. And that was why in November 2015, he took us to Kebbi State, and we started the journey towards ensuring that we're able to encourage farmers to go to the farms and grow rice, wheat, and all types of maize.
Sure.
And today, we have achieved that. And we've achieved because when the farmers, who never even thought that they could see a president, or who never thought they could see a governor, who never thought they could see personalities in the country coming to them in the rural areas to say, look, we want to give you support one way or the other. It's a lot of encouragement to them. And by doing that, you make them go back
Sure.
to the farm. Doing that, going back to the farm, they produce the rice, they produce the wheat, put in place a mechanism where those rice is bought off them, they can go back, and so that is the way you improve the wealth of your people. And that is what the government has done in the last 2 years, and I'm happy to say that we've achieved some success in that direction.
I believe so. I mean, I know that there's been a lot of positive feedback on the rice scheme. And I think that there is also some movement on palm oil. But palm oil is obviously a long-term investment. And one of the things that we know is that there are also multinationals that are coming in to invest in the palm oil ecosystem. One of the things that we also need to do is sort of get more young people back to farming. I mean, farming was something that used to be a sort of a family trade. That's not happening anymore. So one of the things that you're saying is that we need to get government involved, and we need to make sure government are able to protect and subsidize. But the other thing we need is infrastructure development. What do you think that we need to do around infrastructure? Because, for example, by the time tomato gets to the south from the north, there are no roads, there are no ways to get these things into people's hands. And I know we need to actually talk about foreign exchange, so we're going to park that conversation. And if we have some time, I want to pick that up with you, because I know people are watching right now to talk to you more about that. So my first question around the foreign exchange policies and also the monetary policies that we've seen over the last 3 years that you've come to office, you said it in the first, in one of your first statements. We went from 155 to 197, and then also kind of almost been in this place where we were going to free float and we weren't going to free float. What are some of the things that you believe that as a bank that you've done right in sort of dealing with the issues around the foreign exchange shortage?
Well,
I will also ask you what the things that you wish you had done better.
But you know, the point is that like I said earlier, we're confronted by the economic headwinds.
Sure.
Which resulted in a drop in commodity price, and in this case, the price of crude from as high as 140 to as low as 28, and now sort of stabilizing at between, say, 47, 48 to about 55. Confronted with those challenges, where there wasn't enough for Forex to meet the demand of those who needed to import, we took a couple of countervailing actions. For instance, we had to adjust the currency, then from 155 to 168, 168 to 197, and now we're where we are right now. I haven't taken those decisions, and indeed, those decisions were very painful, because when you're adjusting currency, it has its own attendant negative impact on the economy and the rest of them. Haven't taken those actions, we've still felt, and we felt the essence of that is to encourage flow of funds into the country so supply can be deepened. Unfortunately, we didn't quite achieve that. And so we had to look at other demand management measures, and haven't taken a few actions there of demand management, where we had to say, look, there are certain items that if we can produce them in the country, that why really
Import them.
Why import them, or why allocate foreign exchange for those purposes? And those were some of the actions that we took, and I must say that those demand management measures have worked, and that's why today we're talking about improving the wealth of our farmers and rice and palm oil and the rest of them. People are gradually going back to them. But of course, haven't taken price on. We've also taken on demand. At some point, you needed to come back and look at what we need to do something about supply. And what we've done in the last in June 2016, we introduced the flexible foreign exchange market scheme, and since then we've been adopting different schemes towards ensuring that it succeeds. And I must say that what we've done during that period, we tried to dissect the market to say what is responsible for the hike in the exchange rate, and we kept looking at the various factors contributed to that. And I must say that luckily we've been able to track it, and at this stage, taking some of the action that we've taken between, say, the beginning of this year up till this time, you could see the exchange rate dropping from as high as 520 to a range of between 360, some 357, to as high as maybe 365, 366 that it is right now, is because of the action that we have taken.
Okay.
Basically to situate that, how do we ensure that the Central Bank of Nigeria is not the only contributor of foreign exchange into the economy? And in the last 10 weeks, for instance, We've seen flus returning back into the country. Over $2.5 billion has come in. What that tells us is that, well, we need to do a few more things, and I'm believing that as we do some of those things,
I'm going to go to break, but when I
Yes.
come back, we're also going to talk about the 41 items that you mentioned and talk about sort of what did we expect and what can we expect going forward with some of these items. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back.
Yeah.
Time now for a short break on the morning show, and we'll be back with the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Thank you.